Okay, cool. Thank you all. Welcome to the Technology Committee meeting. If I can ask for roll calls, we know who's here.
Mayor McCallum.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell.
Here.
Councilmember Robinson.
Here.
Supervisor Rutherford is absent. Supervisor Solis is absent.
She said was on the phone call.
She
No,
probably just
she was
stepped
here.
away.
She
She's
was there.
she just stepped away probably for a bio break.
Councilmember
Hi,
Busco.
this is Teresa, her staff member. She is not able to come to Technology Committee, but since we noticed it for Brown Act purposes, we're just keeping the video on. And
Great.
staff
Thank
is
you.
here monitoring the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Here. Okay. Apparently we do have a quorum, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. If I can turn your attention to the agenda, let's now, 3 items before us. Let's take item number 1. Joseph?
Yes.
Lopat?
Yes. Do you want
Bring the slides up.
presentation up?
Agenda item number 1 is execute a contract to develop and certified near zero emissions propane engine for on-road medium duty vehicles. Air quality management program highlights the need to lower NOx from the largest contributor of emissions, the internal combustion engine. In order to reduce emissions from these engines, staff has presented to the board several technology projects recently demonstrating near zero technology. One of these projects was the successful completion of the Cummins Westport 8.9 and 12-liter engine certifications. These two heavy-duty natural gas engines with emissions 90% lower than the current standards are now in production and available for use in our incentive programs. Additional 0.02 gram per brake horsepower NOx engines are needed for medium-duty platforms. Propane engines are in high demand by OEMs to meet future regulatory requirements because of their power efficiency and low infrastructure cost, making them an attractive option for Type C school buses, which are those smaller school buses, kind of like the specialty buses you see, the cutaway trucks and vans, kind of like in the picture up there, and there's also 15 other combinations of vehicles that can use the propane engines. Roush Clean Tech Technology, a Ford certified supplier for over 20 years, proposes to modify their existing Ford 6.8 liter propane engine to develop and achieve near zero NOx levels. They can leverage their existing 0.05 engine success as a cost-effective way to reduce emissions and the nation's first production of a 0.02 NOx propane engine. They were planning on doing this project through new after-treatment technology by loading design and on the wash coat on the catalyst, and the advanced controller software management. Basically, that's calibration, lots of time work on calibration and in the lab and testing emissions on this engine. That's most of the time is in calibration work, and that's where most of the cost is in the calibration work and the certification. The certification is anticipated by the end of 2018 and will be directly used in Ford White Fleet vehicles and Bluebird buses. The goal to achieve near zero 6.8 liter propane engines for the marketplace. Sales predictions show a high demand for diesel replacements, and this engine will also offer us a highly needed option for the medium-sized vehicles. For incentive programs and especially in EJ communities where most of these vehicles operate every day. Staff anticipates also this technology might transfer to a follow-on project with CNG engines in the future. The proposed budget for this project of almost $2 million, Roush Clean Tech is going to fund $1.46 million, and South Coast SCAQMD will fund $488, or 25% of the project. The recommended action is to execute a contract with Roush Cleantech to develop and certify near-zero emissions propane engine for on-road medium-duty vehicles in an amount not to exceed $488,750 from the Clean Fuels Fund 31. Are there any questions? Yes.
Okay, colleagues, any questions on item number 1?
Yes, Chairman Buscaino, I have a question.
Judy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So these are existing propane engines,
Yes.
and if this is successful, does it mean that an existing propane truck can be modified with this, or do you need to start all over, start with a brand new engine?
You would have to start another engine. It would be a retrofit project. This would be a new catalyst assembly would include with the engine and new calibration. So they have to start over again.
Repower.
Repower.
Yeah, you'd have to replace it.
You repower it, okay. All right. And what is the status now with battery electric zero emission for this this size, this 6.8 liter medium size?
Right now there are about 5. We did electric school buses a few months ago, and we have actually started the deployment of those already. One school district, Arupa, got delivered the first 2 electric school buses. So there are 5 manufacturers that are on ARB's approved list that we have funded, and the deployment is going on.
But, the cost is very high, right? So
Yeah.
the typical cost for either a bus or a truck is anywhere from 2 to 3 times more expensive than a conventional technology, right? So we're starting deployment of electric school buses, but we see a 90% cleaner option, either natural gas or propane, may be able to be more economical and you can get greater deployment. So, we're looking at all the options.
Are these eligible for incentive funding?
They will be.
Yes. One thing we are doing with the electric school buses, since it was the first time ever we funded them in the state, so we want a period of time to follow their performance and see how schools are operating, also the availability of charging stations and all that. So as we go, then we will expand the program.
I see. Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Follow up to that,
Questions?
what's that period of time that you're looking at those electric?
We are looking for deployment of these electric school buses by September of this year. So I would say maybe a year at least to look at the performance of those buses.
Great, thanks.
Dwight, what was that question? I missed it.
I was just asking what the period of time was for the electric school buses that, the 2 that he mentioned that are in Harupa right now, and to evaluate their effectiveness and probably range issues and things of that nature. So.
Got it. Well, on the same line of that, if I can ask Matt or Joseph, the school districts today, they have to pay a copay, correct, for propane or CNG? Is that true?
It depends on the program, Councilman. If we fund them under the regular Carl Moyer program, the copay is much larger. We can maybe provide, depending on the mileage of the old bus, maybe we provide $70,000, $80,000. They have to provide the rest. Under our AB 923 program, we are much more generous, so schools pay $10,000 or $15,000, very small amount from the entire cost, including tax.
So on the electric school bus issue, what do which is today the best available technology, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, on the electric school bus, ARB's guidelines are different on the type of the school bus. For electric school bus, the maximum dollar amount allowed under ARB's guidelines is $400,000, which is quite a whole lot compared to what we can provide for natural gas. And therefore, for electric school buses that we did, we are providing the entire cost of the bus without any copay from schools, because we wanted to encourage them to take the risk, or not the step of taking advantage of the technology.
That was my concern. That
Yes.
is, how are we going to, knowing that we have the best available technology today with electric school buses, we need to do everything we can to incentivize the use of them. So I thought we had the school district had to pay a copay for the electric school buses. So you're saying there's no copay, correct?
No copay, and one step we did is we teamed up with Air Resources Board, so we basically divided the burden between us. We are paying about $268,000 from our funds, and ARB is paying from their HFIP funds up to $130,000, $120,000, $30,000 per bus. And all these buses are in EJ areas, by the way.
Wonderful. Any other questions, comments, colleagues?
I'll move the item.
Any members of the public would like to speak on this item, item number 1 that's before us right now?
Yes, we do have someone.
Good afternoon. My name is Javier Rodriguez with Garden Grove Unified School District.
You're going to be given 2 minutes to speak, okay?
Okay, thank you. The idea of electric buses is great, and the incentives for purchasing of the buses is great. The issues or the concerns that we see, especially older school districts that have failing infrastructure, to be able to provide the adequate power sources for those school buses, we lack the infrastructure. And at this point, I don't see any funding, or I haven't heard any funding for that infrastructure to assist school districts.
I can try to answer that. With the funding that we provided at our board meeting for the 33 school buses, in addition to the funding we provided for the bus, we provided up to $20,000 per bus for infrastructure. So if a school was awarded 2 buses, they got $40,000. It is a valid comment that there are cases that due to trenching, due to distance, and due to complications, the infrastructure may be a little bit over the $20,000 per bus or whatever a school is getting. So we are working with the infrastructure providers to accommodate that. We are looking for other sources that possibly we can help schools.
We're trying to reestablish the connection. The video.
There you go.
So we are trying to help schools as much as we can with any overcost in this regard. But as of now, the approved amount is $20,000 per bus for infrastructure. There may be some additional funds with some of the schools, not all of them, but we are working with schools individually to see how we can accommodate that.
Let me clarify, right? This item is for approval of a demonstration project to develop a near-zero propane school bus engine that would be also available for work trucks. Right, so the electric infrastructure and electric buses is something else that we did previously, the board approved. We're doing a limited rollout to test the waters, but this is really, this item before you is to develop this other portfolio, so we have not only natural gas, we'll have propane and electric.
This can be applied to school buses, but that's not the main purpose of it.
Well,
right?
it is the main purpose for this engine, but it can be applied for other work trucks of the same size.
Functions.
So we're not forcing schools to choose any particular clean fuel, right? So,
right.
And as Fred was mentioning, we're willing to help them if there's an infrastructure issue.
Great.
Thank
That's
you.
right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
Well, do you have any
No
more
other
public speakers? Anyone else? All right.
Our final speaker.
Yep, no
So,
other public
Mr.
comment.
Chairman, I'll move the item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor McCallum,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell.
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 ayes.
Thank you. Let's take now item number 2.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Yeah.
I'm Baskin Yardemian, and the item before you is to approve awards for alternative school bus replacement program. This is another round of funding for the implementation of lower emission school bus incentive program in the South Coast SCAQMD region. Since 2001, when the lower emission school bus program began, the district has provided nearly $200 million in combination of state and local funds to replace over 1,600 pre-1994 diesel school buses with clean alternative fuel buses, and to retrofit over 3,400 newer diesel school buses with diesel particulate filters. Last October, the board issued a program announcement to solicit applications to replace pre-1994 diesel school buses owned by public school districts and joint power authorities with alternative fuel buses using CARMOIL program AB 923 funds. And subsequently, on April 6, the board recognized $3,184,875 from EPA's Targeted Airshed Grant Program to replace diesel school buses with near-zero emission CNG buses. The program announcement mentioned that in case of commercial availability at the time of award, school buses that are certified at optional loan standard will be prioritized. As far as EPA's Targeted Airshed Grant Program, there were 3 criteria to be met. First, that the school bus has to be a Type D, which is the largest school bus in the bus category. It has to be a CNG school bus certified to meet the optional loan standard of 0.02 gram per brake horsepower hour. This is almost 90% cleaner than the 0.2 gram per brake horsepower, and we call it near zero emission standard. And the third criteria is the school district has to be located in disadvantaged communities. The program announcement closed on January 4th of this year after a 3-month application period. Total of 42 public school districts applied, requesting for 248 buses, 142 Type D CNG buses, and 106 Type C propane school buses. Staff recommends to award all 42 school districts that they have applied with a maximum of 15 school buses per school district. There were 4 school districts that applied more than 15 buses. So with that, the total would be 206 school buses would be recommended for awards, with 38 school districts receiving all of their requested buses. So the program will fund 115 Type D CNG buses certified to meet the optional low-NOx standard of 0.02 grams, and 91 Type C propane school buses certified to meet the optional low-NOx standard of 0.05 grams. And the recommended awards will provide the following. For Type D CNG school bus, up to $192,000, and for Type C propane school bus, up to $121,000. The school districts will be required to have a local match minimum of $15,000 for a Type D CNG bus and $10,000 for a Type C propane bus. The award will include also up to $4,500 for an optional fire suppressant, and as well as fueling infrastructure funding up to $14,000 per CNG bus and up to $5,000 for a propane bus for those school districts that they have requested. However, the school districts will pay for any discretionary options they may choose to include on the bus, and the diesel school buses will be permanently destroyed by licensed dismantlers. And lastly, any school district, any of the school district may choose to replace a diesel school bus with an electric zero-emission bus instead of an alternative fuel bus, however, using the same amount of funds as indicated on this table. This table shows the proposed funding distribution for each county. As you see, a total number of school districts, as I mentioned, 42 school districts will get the awards, with recommended 206 school buses. EPA will contribute $3,104,700 from its airshed grant, and SCAQMD's AB 923 funds will contribute $32,533,300. This table shows the proposed funding distribution in disadvantaged communities. Using Cal EPA's Cal Enviro Screen Mapping tool, which identifies disadvantaged communities in the state of California, over 76% of the school districts, they contain some disadvantaged communities, which translates 32 school districts out of 42 school districts, and which translates to 164 buses out of 206 buses. And with 100% of EPA's airshed grant spent in these communities, which is one of their grant requirements, and up to 75% of AB 923 funds will be spent in these communities. So the recommended action is the following: is to execute contracts with all 42 public school districts to replace 206 diesel school buses, including infrastructure, if requested, in an amount not to exceed $35,638,000, comprised of $32,533,300 from Cosmo Program AB 923 fund and $3,104,700 from EPA Targeted Airshed Grant in Clean Fuels Program. Also reimburse $80,000 from EPA Targeted Airshed Grant for the admin cost. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions?
I have a few.
Hearing none?
I have a few.
Go ahead, Dwight.
First, I think I may have asked the same question last year with respect to this, but I'm wondering how many more pre-1994 buses are out there. I know this is a program announcement. They're responding to us, so I'm just wondering, do we have an inventory of what's out there in the district, and how many more are there?
Yes, actually, compared to your last year's question, the number has changed drastically. And the reason is because starting beginning of this year, Air Resources Board school bus rule kicked in, which pre-1994 buses shouldn't be operated actually. And because of that, the number has decreased drastically. Last year, if you answered this question, my answer maybe would have been around 800 to 900 in our basin. Right now, it's maybe around 300. We recently took an inventory. When we take an inventory, not every school responds, but it's a reasonable estimate. So with this award that we are recommending here, the remaining number may be 100 to 200, and we are anticipating that these will be actually taken out of operation because of ARB's regulation. Now, the AB 923 funds, ARB specifically allows us to help schools replacing these buses, even though the rule has kicked in on January 1st. So the number is very small, and because of this, we have requested to ARB for next round to consider replacement of pre-2000 buses, because when the program started in 2001, we started replacing pre-87. Then we increased that to pre-1994. And even if that number is increased to pre-2000, we will be replacing buses that are older than 18 years, which are really old. So, short answer to your question, the number is small, maybe less than 200 after we do this award.
Great. Well, thank you for the response. I appreciate that, and I just want to commend the staff. You know, for the last 17 years of this program, you've made some huge strides in the region with respect to this issue. And although I probably have a few concerns about the way the survey was put together, that survey we recently looked at with registered voters, this was extremely high, no surprise, but extremely high concern for those respondents in the district. And so I think that it's one of the most important things we can do is to try to make sure that we're replacing the buses. So next year, just to give you in advance, my question will probably be how many pre-2000s are there? and you know, let's just keep pushing forward, which I know you all are doing. With respect to the fueling infrastructure, if requested, just based on that previous public comment we had on the previous item, do we feel like the $14,000 is a reasonable amount to provide there, or is there some co-funding that the school districts would need to provide the actually put that in?
Yeah, I can try to answer that. The $14,000 is adequate for slow fill, which school districts use, because they fill the buses overnight and they get maximum refill. What we have done throughout the years, a lot of these schools are repeat applicants.
Yeah, they have to.
We have provided a lot of funding for their infrastructure in addition to what we have provided through this. So that's why right now a lot of school districts don't even request additional infrastructure funding. And those who have requested, we believe the funding is adequate. Yes.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for that. My last comment, and again, it's one I've made in other items that weren't pertaining to school buses, but in general, I'm concerned about the required scrapping and dismantling. I definitely understand that we want those buses out of the district, no question about it. But is there some value to another part of the country or another part of the continent or the continent below us, Central America, whatever it might be, for those buses, if they still have some useful life to them, to take them to a place where maybe they're using pre-1987s, pre-1977s, who knows what might be out there. And is there an economical way of transporting those? So I just want to throw out that comment.
I think for school buses, it's probably not that useful, but
Okay.
I think you're right in other areas, like some of the trucks that we're looking at the port, so we'll look into that. I mean, we did that pilot project with Puget Sound, so that's kind of some of the strategies we're looking at for truck replacement.
Yeah, and this might be something to look at in that next phase, so that when we go to a pre-2000,
yeah.
then maybe there's some 1998s that make sense to send to Mexico or Central America, or, so.
We have to work with ARB to change their guidelines requirements.
Totally understand.
Also, yeah. They do require scrapping.
I know there's a lot of hurdles, but it disheartens me to see when I may travel that there's something old out there and we're scrapping something that's newer,
Yes.
and it could be within a couple of day drive to get that to someone who could really use it and improve an area that I don't have responsibility toward politically, but from a moral perspective, I feel like I do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Any other members wish to speak on item 2? Any members of the public who wish to speak on item number 2, please come forward.
There is one.
Two.
Hurry, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, Mauro Bologna, Creative Bus Sales, one of the school bus dealers here in California. Just a quick question on the agenda item here. On the slide, you mentioned that the school district can also opt for an electric vehicle. Now, would that electric bus still require a $15,000 copay?
Well, the amounts that we are providing for the natural gas or propane bus is quite a lot less than what an electric school bus will cost. That's the amount that the board approves. And based on the meeting we had with Creative Bus Sales, we came to this agreement based on your request,
Right.
that if a school decides that with the same amount of funding, instead of the natural gas or propane bus, they want to purchase an electric bus, we would allow that. But yes, the copay of the school would be significantly higher.
Okay, so we can also add in HBIP funding
Correct.
as well.
Yes.
So HBIP funding, the current program would basically pay for the total cost of the bus. So what I'm asking, I guess, for the school districts that are really interested in going with a zero emission option for a school bus, would you be willing to waive the copay
Well, it's
or the
not.
match requirement of $15,000?
It's not waiving the copay. You are allowed to get HFIP money from a resources board as a separate application process. And when we get the invoice for the bus, if a school goes with an electric school bus, say the bus costs, just for the sake of argument, $400,000, and a resources board gives you $250,000. Then we will give the remaining 150 or whatever. We cannot give you more than what the bus costs.
Right.
But if the remaining copay is covered by HFIP, we are fine with that.
Okay.
The only thing is that the school, compared to our previous award, has to still agree to scrap the old bus.
Okay,
That's it.
that's great. And as far as the infrastructure, the up to $14,000, would you consider any additional funding for the electric charging stations?
I would say at this time is what the board has approved, so that's the amount that will be provided. If there are funding from HFIP or other sources, or maybe California Energy Commission, anything that schools can seek, that would be fine. Carl Moyer program offers infrastructure funding. Schools will be welcome to apply for it. And HFIP, ARB funding.
So they could get additional HVIP.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. And then one last question. I know I'm almost there. Okay, or I passed. The Type C funding of $120,000. Now, the school districts that are awarded Type C funding is for $120,000, whereas the Type D funding is much more. Now, the electric buses are in that Type D category. So, if the school districts that have been awarded Type C funding and they choose to go with a few electric vehicles, would they get the same funding amount?
No, this is what the schools requested based on the specific program announcement. The school requested Type C, and this is the dollar amount. That's what we'll provide it.
Yeah.
But more money can be provided from HFIP to cover the difference.
Yeah, it's a little short on that side, but that's why I wanted to bring it up today to the council. So, because if that is an option, that option wasn't available when this happened, when the program was introduced. So
this program announcement was specifically issued for alternative fuel, optional standard school buses. It wasn't meant for electric school buses. We did this to accommodate your needs and any school that may need this. So the amounts that are provided are for this. We will have opportunity for electric school buses in the near future. So,
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you again. Just to reiterate staff position on this, we need to do everything we can to incentivize the best available technology, and that's before us. Very similar to what when we advance a cleaner action plan here in the city at the port. It's important to use the best available technology to march towards a zero-emission port. But if we want a zero-emission fleet of school buses, this is a good start, knowing that they have products out there. And by using other fund sources to help cover some of those costs. Any other member of the public like to speak on this item?
We have another.
Yes, we have
Yes.
one more.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Chicas. I'm here on behalf of the Capistrano Unified School District. I'm the Director of Transportation there. Good
afternoon.
Good afternoon. My Deputy Superintendent, and Board asked me to come and speak on the district's behalf. I'd also like to commend the district on this program. We are so grateful that a particular fuel alternative is not being pushed on districts. As you can imagine, there's a variety of different types of districts out there in size, also topography. The demand of operation varies from one district to another. We are at the southernmost tip of Orange County, servicing a number of communities: Laguna Niguel, Aliso Viejo, Dana Point, San Clemente, Mission Viejo, and Rancho Santa Margarita. So our distances traveled are quite extensive. So although we did apply for the electric grant the last time around, it would only help us to serve about 3 routes of about 120 routes that we do right now. So having the option of a CNG fuel, a low NOx option, I think is great. I think we need to continue to have that type of portfolio of options for districts. It's also at the time being that the technology is moving closer and closer to zero emissions. On top of that, it's practical for districts because of how much less expensive it is. And I'm sure that the electric technology is going to start moving in that direction. It'll be more cost effective to go that route, but at the time being, it just is not. So for us, the infrastructure funds are also going to be very, very useful. We're expanding our slow fill station at the district, so we'll have a total of 51 dispensers now, and when the next go around comes along, because we still have 16 eligible units, we were one of those that was making that number a little higher with the pre-94, but we are when I arrived there, we had 46 buses, and now we're down to only 16 pre-94s. So we're excited to and if you do it to the year 2000, of course, we're going to be a big one in there too. We'll be a big chunk of those buses. But just wanted to kudos the district and this committee, because I think it's really good work. Our parents, our families are appreciative of it. We are now using cleaner vehicles to transport our most precious cargo. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public like to speak on item 2?
Yes.
Please come forward.
Another one?
2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. And definitely want to piggyback on the previous comments to say thank you for SCAQMD, because it is a great program to assist school districts in providing a much cleaner alternative fuel than diesel or any other natural gas. So we definitely say thank you for that. What recently came to light is the new California Lee law, the child check law, is a requirement. It's going to be, it's mandatory for all school districts to have a child check system in any school bus effective school year calendar 18-19, which would be approximately August of this year, this calendar year. The new buses don't provide any funding for that yet. Is a requirement for a school district to be mandated to have those child check systems in those school buses. I'd like to propose and see the option of any possibility of getting a little funding for those systems, because it's a requirement. Any new bus or all buses from this point forward come August will require to have a new child check system according to the Lee law.
That is something that ARB has to allow under their guidelines, and as of now for this program that we have, it is not allowed. So we can pay for the seat belt and the base price of the bus, and the only other option that ARB has allowed us to make is the fire suppressor. But we will bring to ARB.
What's the cost per?
We're estimating, because still CHP hasn't provided any concrete detail. They're still in fluctuation. There was even a proposed bill to extend the requirement, but that's been held up in the legislature. So at this point, we're estimating approximately $1,000 per bus for a complete child check system.
So we'll bring that up to ARB.
We'll bring that to ARB.
Minimal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
That's it.
Okay, so what's before us, colleagues? Item number 2. You have a motion to approve item 2?
So approved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor McAllen,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 4 ayes.
Thank you. Third and final item, item number 3.
Good afternoon, Chairman Buscaino and members of the committee. My name is Sujata Jain. I'm Assistant DEO of Finance. And this item is to establish a special revenue fund to recognize the AB 134 money. This is a little bit administrative in nature, so just a little background. The board authorized recognizing $107.5 million of AB 134 funding into the Carl Moyer Fund 32. And there was also a temporary loan that was authorized to be transferred from Fund 923 AB 923 Fund 80 into the Carl Moyer Fund on an as-needed basis up to $51.7 million. And also, the board authorized execution of contracts in the amount of $51.7 million from the Carl Moyer Fund. And there was another 2 actions. One was to recover administrative costs up to $561,792 from the Carl Moyer Fund 32 to the general fund, and allow the executive officer to redistribute the sources of funds between the Carl Moyer Fund and the AB 923 fund and the AB 134 funding. So staff is recommending that we establish a special revenue fund to basically recognize, maybe I went back too fast. Staff is basically recommending that we establish a new fund called Community Air Protection AB 134, Fund 77, and recognize that $107.5 million into that fund instead of the Kalmoya Fund 32. And also the temporary loan.
Go ahead.
Also the
I'm sorry, proceed.
Also, the temporary loan that was authorized from AB 923 fund into the Kalmoya fund. Now, if that could be between the AB 923 fund into the Kalmoya fund 32 up to the $51.7 million. And the contracts now should be executed out of the new fund 77 instead of the Kalmoya fund 32. And also, if there's any administrative cost recovery, that should be between the new fund 77 into the general fund up to $561,792. And once again, authorize the executive officer to redistribute funds between the funding sources of Kalmoya Fund 32, Fund AB 923, Fund 80, and the Community Air Protection AB 134, Fund 77. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, colleagues?
I have to announce that I don't have a financial interest, but I'm a member of the California Air Resources Board, and this agenda item involves that board. And I do have a question.
Any others?
The administrative costs of $562,000. Explain that. This is a
$107.5 million grant. So
and half of that's administrative?
no, just
Yeah, that was my question too, Judy, so I was scratching my head on that.
I'm sorry, it's just 561,000, not million.
Okay.
If I said that, I apologize.
Okay. 0.5%. Okay. Thank you.
So if I might, Mr. Chair, this is just being set up to be able to track the AB 134 funds
Yes.
separately.
Yes, Mayor
All
McGannon,
of that is.
this is just administrative, and we think a grant of this nature should maybe have its own fund, because for audit purposes, when CARB comes to audit, they would like to see the revenue, the expenditures, the contracts, the interest tracking. It just becomes more a little bit more efficient to have it in its own fund.
Want to address the tech committee? Any others? Thank you. Do we have any port issues? I got David Libatique here, who was recently promoted to the Executive Deputy Director of Stakeholder Engagement. Come say hello. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, everybody. David Libatique, Councilman.
Congratulations, David.
Yeah. Sounds like you need to take us out to lunch.
Yeah.
No kidding, he's fine. Hello, Commissioners. So thanks, David, for your commitment and congratulations on your promotion. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Okay, any other questions? Public comment on item 3 that's before us?
None here.
I'll move the item, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 3.
It's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, I missed that. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor McAllen?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino?
Aye, so item 3 passes.
Motion passes 4 ayes.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other business before us? Any member of the public who would like to speak on a non-agenda item? This is general public comment portion of the agenda. Please come forward.
None here.
No one here in Los Angeles. No one with Minnesota East. Anyone there at Diamond Bar?
None here.
Great. Have a great, blessed weekend. Make it a good one. Thank you for joining us. We're now adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, Richard, can we talk about the low carbon fuel standard
Yes.
for ARB?
Yes.